Hey everybody, Hosdrone here with another first edition video. It's first edition Friday again. I was able to find some time in my busy schedule to come up with a video and to record this video. I hope you guys had a good, very Merry Christmas. You're having a happy holidays. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the back-to-back videos last week on Friday and Saturday, the companion videos, the showdown deck upgrade videos. Consider it a Christmas present or Hanukkah present to all of you out there. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it gives you a good starting place for how maybe you want to take those decks and make improvements to them so that you can use them for kitchen table games with friends, family, or if there's somebody that you want to teach the game to, that you can start with the original pre-con deck, and then I've given you ways that you can upgrade those decks as the person you're teaching becomes more proficient in the game. You can show them some new things with the upgrades that I've done. But for this video, we're going to do a little end of the year conversation. What I have laid out here on the table is every card that is currently banned in the modern format. Modern format is the sanctioned tournament format. So if you play in a sanctioned tournament, you cannot play with these cards. These are the cards that are all banned as of today. Basically, these are the cards that will be banned as of the end of 2023. And that includes the latest edition of Planet Killer. So these are all the cards that we have in the game that are not playable in a tournament format. You know, there are not really that many given just how many cards exist in the game. And so on the one hand, we can look at the positives and say, we don't have that many banned cards in the game. But the downside is that a lot of these cards are cards that people have had a lot of fun with over the years. There are cards in here that go back to the origins of the game and how the game was originally played. And as the game has evolved, they simply became too good. And so they simply need to be changed or toned down in a way to allow them to kind of coexist in the modern game. And I think this is a normal, healthy part of a good card game. I am a believer in a liberal use of the banned list. If a card shows itself to be problematic, it should just be banned quickly. But then I also believe that an effort needs to be made to get that card fixed and back out into the world. So when I look at this list, even though I don't see that many cards on it, it gives me the sads to see that there's a lot of cards on here that I think that should be brought back, just because people want to play with their cards. And like I said, a lot of these cards have seen a lot of play over the years, and it's just unfortunate we don't get to play with them, especially since we've seen some cards come back in a very fun way. A really good example recently is Paler Toff. Paler Toff was definitely overpowered in the modern game, and they found a way to tone it down and bring it back. And honestly, Paler Toff now feels really good. It's not overpowered, but it is useful, and I think it's an excellent way. It's an excellent example of what you can do to change a card, not that much, and all of a sudden it's an appropriately powered card. So what I'm going to do in this video is we're going to go through all the cards that are banned here, and I'm going to give you my thoughts and what I think it would take to bring these cards back. For some of these cards, it'll take a decently significant change. There's one card in particular. But for the most part, a lot of these cards don't really require that big of a change, in my opinion, to get them back out into the wild for people to play with. And so consider this just, my end of the year, a kind of a Christmas wish slash New Year's wish would be to see a lot of these cards in 2024 come back. I think that the community needs to make this a priority, getting cards back, because it's, you know, it's great to have new sets and stuff, but, you know, like getting one card back off the ban list or getting one broken link fixed can feel better to a player, like better than like most of a new set, right? So I personally am of the opinion that design and balance should be, you know, okay with like one or two sets coming out a year, but then make it a priority to get X number of cards off the ban list or X number of broken links fixed in a year, as a way to like really sweeten the situation. So anyway, so let's just get into it here, and we're just going to do this in alphabetical order. I have set aside the cards that are banned because they became rules, and so we'll talk about them separately at the end, but we'll do the other banned cards here. We'll just do them in alphabetical order. So that's just the easiest way to do it. So we're going to start with Access Archives. Basically, the reason why it's banned is that this is a mission that can very quickly be worth 60, 70, 80 points, and really all it requires is computer skill to solve it. But then it's so very easy for pretty much every deck that's a solving deck to turn this into at least a 50-point mission by just having 5 different classifications in a game where we now have persistent individuality. Players are mindful of having lots of different classifications, and so this mission is just a little bit too easy for that kind of a bonus point push. Then of course there's the fact that it's not actually bonus points, they are mission points, and so it's not like it's not slowed down by the intermix ratio rule, and so this mission ends up being very, very strong. So what it just needs is a cap. It just needs to be computer skill X equals number of different classifications present, and then parentheses max 4, so that this mission can't really be worth more than 40 points. A 40-point mission that essentially would require 1 skill and 4 classifications. Basically, it requires essentially 5 skills, so to speak, is a very fair mission then. And so Access Archives languishing on the ban list, you know, this is one of the ones that's like, it feels just particularly egregious to me because it just seems like the answer is just very obvious. You know, it's been talked about a lot recently that we just can't have missions, we can't have cards that seemingly have like no upper limit. And so if that's the problem, they just put a limit on it. And a 40-point mission that doesn't show 40 points, they exist out there. This isn't gonna, that wouldn't change anything for, you know, most things. It doesn't have any affiliation icons on it, so it's usable by everyone. So, and then what you get into is if this becomes like a really good mission, then it becomes a situation where people start duplicating it. And if it becomes duplicated, well, then it becomes that much harder. And so it kind of self-balances that way. So, honestly, Access Archives, it literally just needs like a max 4 on it. And that's it. And it can come back. So we move on to all threes. The reason why this card got banned was because it was part of the Holy Hexany, or whatever it was called, back in the day, where it really fueled other overly powered cards. Nowadays, it stays on the ban list because it's, even though it's only once each turn, it's still a little too overpowered because it gives you a +2. So it's an interrupt that's played out of hand that gives you +2 cards. It also fuels discard strategies, and now that Paler Toff is back, it could press a little too hard on people's ability to get what they want. What I think would get all threes back into the game is if you just simply take away, if you simply take away the last line, the discard the other opponent's, the last part, the opponent's choice, unless you have any data in play, eliminate that because we need the card space in order, we need the room on, we need the room on the card for how we're gonna like possibly errata this, but first off, I think the way to fix it would be to first off lean into the thematicness of the card and have it be one of the thrice per game cards like Quinn, etc., and just be thrice per game, once each turn, or plays once each turn, parentheses, thrice per game, or thrice per game, to reveal, and then change it to 3 sets of 3 cards from the top of your deck. And then, instead of it just being you get to choose or whatever, opponent, stuff like that, or the opponent gets to choose whatever, it should just simply be random. And so only 3 times in a game would you get this plus, kind of like that additional kind of +1 card for what's considered the average or what's considered acceptable. And then you're going to lose 6 cards to the discard pile, which may or may not help you. I mean, if you have Paler Toffs and stuff like that, it's going to help you kind of pick and choose through your deck. But then it would be random, a random 3 out of the 9. So not even, the opponent doesn't get to hurt you terribly. You don't have any way of helping yourself terribly. And then, so you only have a 33% chance. If one of those piles is significantly better than the other 2, you only have a 33% chance of getting it, right? And so you make the card extremely thematic. You tone the card down a little bit, and yeah, I think that would probably make the card good. That would require play testing, but a card like this, if you limit it to thrice per game, I think that's the thing that would really make it in line on the power curve, would be the fact that you couldn't just fill your deck with this in order to really use it a lot. You can't use it 4 straight turns in a row early in the game because you're limited. And so it becomes a balance of how many do you put in the deck versus how often do you want to actually see it, because again, if you're putting more of these in the deck, then they show up in those piles, and so they're actually taking spots away from other cards that you would have drawn from those piles. You could even theoretically flip a pile that's 2 out of the 3 of them, or more copies of all 3, and since it's random, you might actually hit that pile. So I think that'd be the way to alter all 3s to get it back into the game. Thrice per game, reveal 3 sets of 3 cards, and then it's random which one you get. Anti-time anomaly. This card is way too heavy-handed. Board wipes in other card games and stuff like that. I mean, there are some card games where board wipes make sense. There are some card games where board wipes are antithetical to what the game is. Okay? Way back in the day when this game was young, anti-time anomaly was perfectly fine because you only played 1 card, there were no free plays, there was red alerts, you could press down hard, go, hit the anti-time anomaly, you or your opponent would hit an anti-time anomaly and play it on the following turn, and the game would kind of get shortened that way. Anti-time anomaly as it's currently written just can't exist in the current game. Granted, the current games are going so short now that and that it might not even make a difference anymore. I know that some people argue that point. I don't know whether I agree with that or not. But what I think could be done with anti-Tom anomaly would be to, instead of it playing on table, maybe have it simply play, like insert into a space line. Like have it insert into the space line, have it create a span, like say 1 or 2, creates a span, additional span, and then it would basically be like, make it be like black hole in a sense, like kills all at end of turn kills all personnel here, but then put a countdown icon on it, because that'd be the modern way of changing the wording on it. You put a countdown icon on it of say 3 or 4, and then have it kill all the personnel at the adjacent missions at the end of the countdown, and then the card just goes away. That would be a way that you could affect the space line. Your opponent can play around it very easily by just simply not being there. It creates pollution, so it can affect the space line. That would make it a very useful card, in my opinion. So that would just be something that I think would be a way to bring Anti-Tom Anomaly back, would be to just basically like take it and really like compress down, compress down on its sphere of influence, but then also make it very deadly where it is, and have it impact the space line by inserting between missions and stuff like that and creating a span. If you really wanted to make it interesting, you could give like a span of 4, so it'd be hard to traverse it, so that you have to really stay away from it, because if you're at that adjacent mission when it goes off, you lose everybody who's there. So if you want to traverse the anti-Tom anomaly, it's going to, you have to traverse it at the right time. So that's where I think it'd be really good. I think maybe if you did make it a span 4 event that inserts into the space line, I think that'd be pretty cool. So it would still kill everybody at these adjacent locations. And so your opponent would see the countdown icons coming, the countdown icons, so they'd be able to play around it very easily. They could still Kevin Uxbridge it, they could still Kevin Uxbridge Convergence it, etc. I think that'd make it a pretty interesting card. Brain Disruptor Burst. The problem with Brain Disruptor Burst is that it basically outclasses all other tactic cards by having such strong range, weapon, and shield negatives, while also being hull minus 35. I mean, there's a lot of ways that this card could be toned down. It just basically needs to be brought in line with all of the other tactics that are tied to an affiliation, right? It does. Honestly, it was way overestimated by the designer, by the designers, that having the attack bonus be limited to a ship that is only one affiliation and stuff, that people wouldn't use it, when it's yeah, but a 2 and 2 is still good. I think there's a couple of ways that you could nerf this down. I think the one that makes the most sense to me would basically be to give it an attack 0, but then attack bonus +4 if you have a brain ship firing, and then you leave the defense alone, you leave the flips alone, you leave the randomly kill alone. You can even leave the hull reduction alone, if you then reduce the attribute reductions down to -1 apiece. So it would be range -1, weapons -1, shields -1, and then the hull minus 35. I think that's one way you could balance it, but there's a lot of ways you can fiddle with it. The fact that they just simply haven't brought it back means that this is another one of these ones, there's a lot of ways you could do it, and I think that any of them would be correct. Just getting it back out there, I mean, it's a tactic card. Most people, a lot of decks don't even use tactic cards. I mean, there's other things I think that you could, do with this to make it interesting. I mean, the other thing is, you could leave the rest of the card alone, and you could literally just mess with the hull, and just be hull damage minus 15%. You know what I mean? You could really, knock ship down a bunch with a brain disruptor burst, but you don't blow it up until like the sixth one, you know? So, I mean, there's just a lot of ways you can alter this card. The fact that they haven't done it just basically means that they're not making it a priority, because you could alter this card in a lot of different ways, and it would all of a sudden become a balanced card. Delta Quadrant Spatial Scission, aka Decipher's quirky sales scam. This card was originally designed by Decipher way back in Voyager, when the company was trying to find a way to really get money out of people. I think that the timing even lines up that Decipher was going through like some of its worst financial trouble around this time due to the embezzlement scandal. And so us as players and customers, instead of, I don't know, instead of figuring out why they were struggling, you know, they decided, well, we just need to try to find a way to make more money, instead of trying to maybe figure out why they weren't making money, or why they weren't as profitable as they thought they were. And so we get Delta Quadrant Spatial Scission. So it was errata once. That still proved to be a bit of a problem, and so it got banned. And we're looking at the errata copy already. I mean, the errata copy was too good to be banned, so, I mean, you can all imagine just how bad the original was. Right now, I mean, this is one of the ones that I'm not quite sure how you bring it back without radically altering the card. I haven't even looked at this card for so long, then I haven't thought about this card for so long, that, you know, I think that the answer for it would just simply be to, I mean, it obviously makes the card, it makes the card, like, you know, it makes a lot of like the text box kind of useless, but I wonder if the answer for this one is to quite literally just like remove, I mean, either remove everything but the first two sentences, or remove the second sentence, and just have everything after that. A lot of the Delta Quadrant people have just too high a concentration of skills. And so I think that that's probably the problem with it, more than the rest of the card. So I think if you just simply eliminated the second line, and just eliminated that you may have up to 2 copies of each unique Delta Quadrant personnel ship card in play, I think that if you just had it be the rest of the card, where it's just, you know, once each turn you may place a unique Delta Quadrant personnel ship from your hand out of play if you have a copy of that card in play, once per game per card tunnel, and then just all copies in play are attributes +2 until the start of your next turn. And you may play a personnel or draw a card, so that this card becomes either a replacement card draw, which is totally fair, it's just cycling. Cycling is strong in games. Cantripping is strong in games, but in a game like ours, where you're already theoretically in a decent deck, you're already drawing 3 or 4 cards at a turn, you know, plus interrupts and stuff like that. One additional like cantrip isn't gonna break anything. It's then and you may play a personnel, so then it becomes card play engine instead. Well, the thing about card play engines is that you have to have enough card draws to feed that engine. And if you're not allowing duplicates, if you're filling your deck with duplicates, those aren't cards that you can play. So it really is the combination of being able to do both that's the problem with this card, I think. So I think that if they just quite literally eliminate the second line on this card, you have an interesting and fair card again. So I think that's where I ultimately end up on DQSS here. So I would like to see this card kind of come back. I'm guessing that they are making it a priority to get it back into the game because we do have a Voyager set, or the Voyager block is coming up here this year or the year after. I can't remember which. So I do hope that this card does come back, that they get it figured out. I suspect that that's what they're going to do with it, is just eliminate that second line. But I could be wrong. They could be doing something radically different with it. I don't know. But I think it would be a fair card if you just eliminate the second line. Destroy radioactive garbage scow. Plays to discard scow, i.e., yeah. Kills all personnel at that location unless aboard a ship or thermal deflectors present. If mission not yet done, reduce its points. So the issue with this card was that back in the day, you could see this a garbage scow under every mission. The limit of 2 was not a thing. That is the current rules in Modern. If you play Open, there's no ban list, and so like in Open, that's just is a thing. So we're only going to be talking about Modern here. In Modern, you're limited to 2 scows, and that's either the duels or the original space only version, right? And you can have a max 2. So you don't get 2 duels and 2 copies of the space only. You get 2 maximum. So there's only 2 times that you can use this card. I've been a proponent of the idea that I think that point reduction needs help. Like point drain needs help. I think point drain, more point drain, I think some boosted point drain would be healthy for the game, because right now getting bonus points is really easy. 2 mission wins are ridiculously easy right now. I also think the point drain would be good to encourage some of the like alternate win conditions, the homestead. You just need 3 missions, and or the one that's if you just solve 4 missions period, regardless of your points, you win. I think encouraging that would be good for the game as well. So what I think personally is that if you just simply remove the kills all personnel at that location part of it, if it's just plays to discard scow, if mission is not yet done, reduces points. You're limited to that being on 2 different missions. The scow has to be still at the opponent's mission for you to want to do it. And the mission needs to not be done. And so I think that, if you want to put a bunch of these into your deck for just those limited situations, seems fair to me. So just remove the kills all personnel at that location part of the card. So it would just literally read, plays to discard scow, if mission not yet done, reduce its points. Boom. I think you have a fair card. Distortion of space-time continuum, plays on a ship, unstopped ship, crew, or away teams, and restores any of that turn's range already used by that ship. This is already an errated version of it, so it was errated once. I don't know that errata was necessarily much. I'm trying to remember what the actual original card was. I think it was maybe this was like a clarification errata, like to make the card fall in line with modern wording. But now obviously the problem is that being able to unstop your ship and crew and stuff like that and restoring their range is ridiculously good. This card was a ridiculous acceleration of a game that just simply was getting faster and faster as they were making more cards, jump starts, and free play engines and stuff like that. So in our modern game where there's lots of free play engines and stuff like that, this card is just simply too good. Just ridiculously too good. Now, if you made it once per game, I think that would probably be fair. We already have that text on a few personnel. We have the new Deanna Troi from the new set who unstops your ship once per game. You have the first contact Deanna Troi should be unstop her away team once per game. I think extremely limited uses of this is fine, even if you're compounding them with, like you put the Deanna with the distortion. You could compound them a little bit, but that's just creating offense. I think that that's probably fair. So I wonder if this card literally just needs plays on any ship, and you could maybe even extend it to or away team. Plays on any ship or away team, and unstops ship, crew, and or away team, and restores any of this turn's range already used by that ship or whatever. I mean, you could even leave it just the way it is. I don't know. But basically, if you just make this once a game, I wonder if you have a fair card again. Come around over here to the holographic camouflage. Seeds on table. You get 7 different non-board ships that you put under it, and then this is used with the Romulan 22nd century drones. They're the only ships that have holographic skin. Theoretically, if you're playing Borg, you could absorb holographic skin by destroying one, but if you're going to see a holographic skin, a holographic camouflage in a Borg deck, you're basically just banking on the meta being loaded down with Romulan drones. So this card was a problem in the sense that it turned otherwise very small ship into a ship that was ridiculously good for purposes of weapons, so that the drones could then attack just ridiculously big ships. I don't necessarily think that that's the part of this card that was a problem. I mean, maybe it was. I'm having a hard time remembering exactly what it was that was a problem with this, and that may have been the half of it that was. But I don't know. I really am having a hard time remembering exactly what, because I remember it came down to, with this card, it being a situation where this card enabled to something, it may have been the 5 points. I do wonder sometimes again, like I said, I caveat this with I'm not quite 100% remembering what the exact problem was. If you remember what the exact problem was, feel free to leave that down in the comments with your thoughts on this one. I definitely encourage that, because I'm having a hard time remembering exactly what the issue was. Ships being able to shoot other ships, I mean, especially since the drones do cost a card play, I don't see how that's not fair, especially when they're limited to having all of the flips be replaced with the one flip only. So you are required to use a battle bridge. You are only getting one flip, and your own outguns are nullified. I wonder if you just simply, if they took the 5 points off, just take the bonus points off of this, if this card's fine again. Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I'm having a hard time remembering exactly what the issue was with this card. I know that I definitely used it to shoot things that were bigger. I mean, shoot things that were definitely bigger than my drones and stuff. And I wonder sometimes, I do wonder if the problem isn't with the drones themselves and not with this card. If the problem was with the first half of that, the first part of this card, then it seems to me that's more of a problem with the drones. The fact that you could play the one drone anywhere in the space line, and then 2, have the other drone join it from anywhere else. If it really is the combination of those two things together that made this card such a problem, yeah. Just a thought. This was going to be a little bit harder to come up with then, as far as exactly what you need to do with it, because of the problem is If the actual problem is not with a non-banned card, then it's kind of unfair that this is the card that's banned as far as this card being banned. But I know they're never going to ban the drones, because the drones are the centerpiece. They're the required baseline for an entire like deck / affiliation. So I wonder if you bring this card back by just somehow issuing a slight errata to the drones. Yeah. But it would not be a bad thing for the game for there to be a deck out there that can reach, especially like with it being just Romulans, for them to be able to like reach into other quadrants and tag the opponent's ships. So I do wonder again. It brings me right back to, I wonder if you don't get to score the 5 points, if that makes it fair again, or at the very least like reasonable. I don't know. In the zone, there was, back in the day, a lot of consternation about this card. The fact that it helped certain decks win. Basically, when a deck started winning, then it was really hard for another deck to catch up to it. That makes sense that makes sense in two different ways. If you are playing a solver against a solver, if one solver deck gets out in front of the other one, getting that extra suppression on the like come from behind win, definitely a problem. Okay. If you're playing a battle deck versus a control deck, well then the control deck being able to suppress the solver deck from being able to also do like a miracle come from behind win, also a problem. So if that's simply the issue, if that's the issue with this card, then maybe the issue is just like we just need to eliminate that part of it. Because while your score is exactly 50 points, is something that you'd have to basically build around, and it's not necessarily easy, and if your opponent drains your points in any way, shape, or form, you're off it. Each of your ships is double range, double shields. Not that big of a deal, I don't think. I would think that like you could probably just remove double range. That's super helpful. But if you're at 50 points, getting double range, I don't know that necessarily is going to change the outcome of the game too much. If it does, it seems to me like it's kind of a limited thing. Double shields. I wonder if you could just simply change it to at the start of your turn, if your score is exactly 50 points, choose one. Each of your ships has either double range or double weapons or double shields. That seems a bit more interesting to me. The the nullifying end transmission and preparation, I think are good. Good for this card. Each player may call Divining Door only during their turn and only once per turn. That has already been dealt with by the errata 2 Divining Door. So once again, we partially have a card here that's like, that's already been dealt with. We can literally eliminate that from this card. So, I think the solution for this card is just 1, take the referee icon off of it. 2, remove the second sentence, so the whole 50 bonus points in a single turn, don't count it. That's gone. And just simply turn it into like seeds or plays on table. At the start of your turn, if your score is exactly 50 points, choose one, and then have it be a range of different options. Each of your ships is double range or double weapons or double shields, or your personnel have double integrity or double cunning or double strength. And just create that gamut. Create that gamut of here's a range of 6 options. At the start of your turn, choose one. If at the start of your turn, you're not necessarily going to know what you need to do. And it creates interesting situations where like, I'm going to go double weapons and I'm going to like attack my opponent, or I'm going to get double strength and I'm going to attack my opponent. If you're doing that, you're not moving towards scoring points probably, because you're busy whacking your opponent instead of tempting missions. I think that would be very. I think that would make it just a nice, interesting card. There it is, simple, straightforward. Jem'Hadar Shrouding. During your turn, you may place here 1 or 2 Jem'Hadar from hand or in play, then draw a card. These Jem'Hadar are no longer in play. Or plays once every turn for free on an opponent's away team, unless it is a home world. Initiate battle against that away team by playing up to an equal number of personnel from your Jem'Hadar Shrouding on table. Or to it from your Jem'Hadar Shrouding on table, discard incident. So this is what I think needs to be done with this one. I thought about this one quite a bit recently, because this is a card that when it first came out, I loved it because I like playing Dominion, I like doing battle, I like surprise battle, I like keeping solver decks kind of on their toes. I think that's healthy, and right now with all the consideration with the game being maybe a little bit too fast, that having a card like Jem'Hadar Shrouding come back out in some form would be good. I think that the card draw from Jem'Hadar Shrouding is a bit much because Dominion decks that are playing with Jem'Hadar are probably already drawing cards from getting their Jem'Hadar into play with Deos, etc. So what I think needs to happen to this card, and I don't know that there's enough room on this card for all of these changes, but this is the thought that I had about this one. I think it needs to be at the start of your turn. So Caesar plays on table. At start of turn, you may place 1 Jem'Hadar from hand on this event, then draw a card. These Jem'Hadar are not in play. I think that those Jem'Hadar being in play should still be the case. It eliminates problems with you being able to like skis out multiple uniques. Okay, so that's another like incidental problem with this card. That it became a way, and it was designed like in an era where Delta Quadrant Spatial Scission was a thing and crap like that. So we can gain some room on this card by eliminating that first parenthesis and changing the first part to just they have to come from in hand. If they come from in hand, then we're just talking about cycling, and it's the same issue with Delta Quadrant Spatial Scission. If you're just cycling a card from your hand, that is good, but it is not broken. Okay? You're just getting to dig through your deck just a little bit more. That's not a problem. Okay? So, it would be Caesar plays on table, and it'd be at start of turn. Okay? So, like, you're kind of cycling at the start of the turn, like 1 card, to kind of help you have a slightly better turn. But, you know, that's fair. Starting your turn, you may place from hand 1 Jem'Hadar, or place here from hand 1 Jem'Hadar, then draw a card. You've saved a bunch of space. That's going to give us space that we need for the second alteration. Then, I would go or, and then after the or, it'd be seeds like a planet dilemma when encountered. And then it would basically be this text that it has on the other side of the card that has on the second half. That would basically more or less be word for word, but now it's a planet dilemma. So instead of it being something that you play from your hand to be able to do at any time from anywhere, the Jem'Hadar now get their own version of Sleeper Trap or Klingon Troop Deployment. We already have those cards in the game. They have already been deemed fair. They are not a problem. This card would then be maybe slightly better than them because you would theoretically get more than, like, say, 3 people into play that way. But, you know, they have to, you know. But, I mean, the Jem'Hadar should be better at battle. I mean, the Jem'Hadar should be better at battle than, like, say, the Klingons or the Cardassians, like, on a planet, right? So I think that then creates a fair card. It creates another dilemma, you know. So it would basically say then like or seeds under a mission as a planet dilemma, when encountered. Opponent may opponent, and you have to change the wording. Whereas opponent may play, play to hear any number of Jem'Hadar, etc., etc. So it basically just become a planet dilemma that then takes the personnel from Jem'Hadar shrouding, puts them on the planet, and then they may initiate battle. Boom. There you go. And then just still discards. And then just discard. You know? So there you go. Jem'Hadar shrouding fixed. Bring it back. Come on. Planet Killer. Since this is a recent one, I'm not going to go into the history of it because we should all know it at this point. It was just talked about. But basically, this card is too good, giving out 26 bonus points. They just simply need to remove the point box from it. It just needs to be like if you blow it up, it needs to be obsession getting you points, and that's it. You shouldn't get points for blowing this up in any other way. The whole thematic purpose of this card and its tie to obsession and stuff like that that's what should be encouraged. Remove the 10 points so that blowing it up gets you 16 bonus points. That puts it on par with how the Borg ship currently is, and the Borg ship gets you only 15 points. So I think in some ways it's already still too good. So yeah, remove the point box. Fair card again. Q's Planet. The issue with this card, as I remember, because it's been so long, was that this card was simply too good at getting you an artifact quickly. The other part of it was that because you could put it in your Q's tent, you could Q's tent for it, insert it, and get an artifact way too quickly. So it seems to me that if that's the problem with it, then we just simply need to remove the part where you can put it in a Q's tent. So it is this line down here. Yeah, it won't let me do it. It's that last line before the parentheses may also be stocked in Q's tent. Eliminate that line. Since we are concerned right now again with the game kind of going long, I think that the additional 40 points are needed for any player to win. That can be left on. Then of course the other part of the problem is that any owner inserts anywhere on Spaceline was kind of like the other problem. Was that if it was encountered in a Q flash, the opponent would then stick it way away. Like a ridiculous distance away. They put it on the other end of the space line. It'd be too hard to get to, and then and it'd be closer to the opponent than it would be to them. And so then and each player may place up to 3 seed cards here from hand, discard pile or Q's tent. We no longer have dilemmas and stuff like that going to discard piles and stuff, and they're not usually often in hand, and then Q's tent or whatever. This card does need an almost complete rework in how it's written. But I think that we could very easily keep the original kind of intent of the card and eliminate its problems. So first line, instead of owner inserts anywhere onto space line, it should be owner inserts into the space line adjacent to the mission where it was faced, essentially. Could probably be worded better than that, but you get what I'm saying. And then the second line, each player may place up to 3 Z cards in hand. It should be each player may download up to 3 dilemmas. Opponent may download to this mission download and seed up to 3 dilemmas. obviously, so then like the big thing about well, it could just be still it could still just be seed cards. Each player may download and seed here up to 3 seed cards. Okay, but so they're downloaded. They have to be in your deck. They have to be in your hand. They have to be in a Q's tent, Zirconia storage capsule, or and if you have like Dyson Sphere Door, you can get it that way too. That would encourage Dyson Sphere Door. I've ranted and raved on the boards and elsewhere about how Dyson Sphere Door is definitely is something that we need to be encouraging in this game as a way to kind of slow it down and balance it out a little bit. I think encouraging Dyson Sphere Door is only a good thing for this game. So if we change that line to then each player may download and seed here up to 3 seed cards. Boom. So you have to have and here's the I wonder if it would need to be 3, right? Because we're not necessarily encouraging dilemmas. And the problem is that people then download like artifacts and stuff, and you can still only acquire 1 artifact. You can still only seed any artifact that's encountered beyond the first one. So I don't think we're necessarily worried about that either. So I think we get to say 3 seed cards. You just download up to 3 seed card, download and seed up to, download and seed up to 3. Yeah. And then it'd just be until solved. An additional 40 points are needed for any player to win. And then we just simply eliminate the may also be stocked accused, so that line is gone. And then may not be nullified and is not duplicatable. I think we can keep that, and then solving it as any unique personnel and any UA team may attempt mission. I think we can keep those texts and we're fine. So I wonder if that's how we solve the Q's planet problem, because obviously the issue with it was that it could go anywhere on the space line, making it so that one player could very easily, and it was always like the player who was like has it in their Q stand or has it in their Q flash, where so yeah, I think that's how we do it. I recently posted on the boards and on Facebook and stuff like that what I think about quantum incursions. Going back to Jem'Hadar Shrouding, this is the word you use. Seeds like a seeds like a dual dilemma. For Jem'Hadar Shrouding be or seeds like a planet dilemma. So anyway, seeds like a dual dilemma, and then the QR code. This needs to just simply be changed to 20 options. 20 options, obviously in the glossary, a D20 roll, and then of course like the QR code would send you to one of 20 possible outcomes, ranging in difficulty from very easy to very hard. So if you roll a natural 1, you get the hardest option. If you roll a natural 20, you get basically a walkthrough. I think that's, and then you have just a range in between there. I think that it's an opportunity for design to find a way to like find the holes in the different affiliations, like what's tough for each affiliation, and then have at least one option that ends up being tough for every affiliation out there. And that's how we get quantum incursions back. I go more in depth on this one, but I don't really feel the need to, because like I said, the issue with this card originally was that it was just too easy for you to keep having like you need 2 AU or you need 2 empathy, because they were 33% of the possible options. I think you can have hard options like that when they're only a 5% chance. Raise the stakes. So here's the one that's like, okay, how in the heck are we going to change this card when obviously anteing it turns it into first off it keep one from the losers a 60 card deck. Nobody has a 60 card deck anymore. That's problem 1. Problem number 2 is that's essentially it has been essentially considered gambling, which then makes it like essentially illegal for people under the age of 18. That's also not good. But I think that what we can do, what I think can be done with this card, and while in a way keep the kind of spirit of it, would be to first off create an anti-zone. So the anti-zone would then be simply defined as a temporary holding place for a face-up card, right? That was put there by another card. Okay, so we create an anti-zone, right? Just like we have a point box zone, we have an anti-zone, right? Second off, we would eliminate that first line. Your opponent must forfeit the game, or no. No one's getting to like play a card and then just forfeit. We're not allowing that. Second line, eventual winner may randomly select and keep the card. No. Nope. We're not doing that either. What I think we can do with this card instead is just a complete rewrite of it. And I get that, whatever, but these anti-cards, they were created back when, they were created back, when these games were like truly customizable card games that were like you collected them, collectible card game, right? There was just simply no way for like the birth of this type of a game for the designers to understand that, like, maybe one, gambling is going to be a problem, it's going to be considered gambling, and then of course two, the fact that it was actually a way for people to play so they could try to like build their collection. A reasonable idea at the time, this didn't work. So we're not worried about having this card a complete rewrite. Keeping the original intent of this card is just simply not viable. So what I think we can do with it is we create an anti-zone and then just simply have it be where each player takes the top card of their deck, or top X cards, whatever the designer, whatever the errata team or balance team would think would be fair. Each player takes X number of cards from the top of their draw deck and puts it into their anti-zone. And then just simply like when they score points, when a player scores points, they may take a card from their anti-zone and put it into their hand. So it creates a card draw engine card, creates a incentive for players to kind of move forward with offense, essentially like get closer to winning. And there you go. Boom. I think you've got a card, and you don't have to necessarily create an anti-zone. Creating the anti-zone would just be like for flavor purposes. It could just be, each player takes the top 3 cards of their deck, places them out of play. When any player scores points, you may take a card from you may take a card from outside the game, put it in your hand. That becomes a problem. The reason I say we create an anti-zone is because you don't want to do the discard pile, because we've already got that with Paler Top and stuff. And 2, we don't want to necessarily do outside the game, because there's other cards that go out of the game, get placed out of the game, and you don't want them coming back. So that's why I simply say, like, you create an anti-zone. Just be like, each player takes the top 3 cards of their deck and places it into their anti-zone. And then when any player scores points, you may take a card from your anti-zone into your hand. So it just kind of creates like a card draw mechanism / soft search engine, very soft search engine. And I think that becomes a fair card. So that's my thought on Raise the Stakes. Red alert, in place of your normal card play, you may report any number of ships, personnel, and equipment cards. This card is ridiculous. And there are lots of other cards in the game that like reference this card, limiting them, like Space Door, like, you get it as well, yada yada. I don't know what you could possibly do with this card, because of the fact that like it was such a problem from the very beginning that they then created a bunch of soft counters, not silver bullets, we'll call them, I don't know, bronze bullets, for dealing with this card. I think that a way that you could do it instead, so you could just actually sidestep the whole issue, you could just simply sidestep the entire issue of like Space Door, mirroring it and crap like that, would just simply to have it be, remove the plays on table part and just have it be Just like, when you play this card from your hand, you may play one unique personnel and one non-unique personnel for free. And that way, if an opponent has like Space Door, then the opponent would be like, okay, cool. I also now just get a free unique and a free universal personnel as well. It would be, it would still be an acceleration card, but you're using your card play, so it's basically just like you're getting like one free card play, and you're having to play the card out of your hand. So, yeah, that's my personal thought on Red Alert. I'm not going to belabor it any more than that. This card has got a lot of issues, and I don't really have the time to figure out all the ancillary ways in which other cards that were designed later may be playing off Red Alert. That's just an initial thought. Not going to touch on Rogueborg Mercenaries because I happen to know from comments made to me publicly and privately that they already have a fix on Rogueborg Mercenaries. They're just quite literally in the final stages, apparently, of getting this card back out. I have no idea what it is they're doing with it. They've just assured me that it's coming back very soon, and they've come up with a rather clever solution. So I will just simply trust that and move on. Romulan Minefield. The problem with Romulan Minefield was the fact that you could just put multiples of them in play, and you could just start really like blocking off your opponent. This card literally just needs to be made unique. Full stop. I mean, if this card is unique, there can only be one in play, and it just, the way you can kind of separate your opponent just a little bit, you can slow them down. If we want to encourage slowing the game down a little bit, this would definitely like be a way that you can play it offensively or defensively. You're either slowing down a fast-moving opponent by sticking one in a good spot. You can also use it defensively to keep an opponent from necessarily coming down the space line. Both of those are good things. If this card is simply made unique, I think it's perfectly fine. I do think that giving Romulan ships the extra bonus on it, I think you could keep that. But I also think that if you took that off, where you just nobody gets a benefit for it, like Romulan ships can pass through, but nobody else can without incurring the damage. I mean, I think that's probably fine. But if they took the Romulan like exclusion off of it, I think that's also fine. So. Yeah, I think it's a pretty simple fix for Romulan Minefield. I think it's just, once again, they just... Who's ever in charge, they feel like they've got more important things to do, but, I mean, this is such a simple fix that there's no reason it can't come back out, like, very quickly. I have belabored scanner interference for years. I have posted about it in multiple places. I just... yesterday posted an exact errata that I think that the card should get onto the message boards. If you want to know what I think about that, just go there. There is literally no reason this card can't come back, like tomorrow, with the proposed change that I made. You can even take the referee icon off of it if you really want to. Like, the referee icon, I think it probably could still keep the referee icon, but you could take the referee icon off and it's still a good card under my proposed change, and it still would not be broken. The issue with Toxu Todd is its play with Supernova. It and Supernova were probably ban-worthy, but they left Supernova alone because of its interaction with Bashir Founder. With Bashir Founder, it's a fair card. Because of Bashir Founder's itself a fair card, and it's the only way to get Supernova into play otherwise. The issue with Toxu Todd is that if you're going to bring Toxu Todd back in, you have to also make changes to Supernova. I think the issue with Supernova is that it can kill things and destroy things. Including ships and stuff like that, regardless. My personal thought is that it would be nice if we could alter Supernova to not destroy ships or kill people on board ships, but yet at the same time we know that as far as Trek sense, Supernovas should be able to do those things. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what to do with Toxutot. Um, Man, even back in the day, it was ridiculously strong. The only thing that made it not that even remotely balanced back in the day was that like it was an artifact that you had to like acquire. So this is my thinking. My thinking is that this one might actually be hopeless just because supernovas in some ways hopeless. Mm, the only thought that comes to mind here is that if we just don't want supernova like wrecking, um, if we don't want supernova, like if we don't want Tox Utot, you acquire Tox Utot, and you're like, cool, now I can just like whack my opponent with supernovas. Um, so this is my thinking: keep it as an artifact. When it's acquired, it just immediately goes on the table, and then we give it a special download icon of supernova. That would also be a way to like kind of bring it into like a modern sensibility, like modern wording, modern mechanics. Supernova, and then just simply and then we simply and then we give it clarification text. Um, Special downloads supernova. And then I wonder if supernova doesn't get its own. Here's the thing: the problem with like the Toxutat supernova combo is that hmm, the problem with it is that it like takes an entire mission away from an opponent. So the balancing issue with Toxutot Supernova is that if I acquire a Toxutot and then I can immediately get a Supernova, or even if I play a Supernova later, I don't necessarily know that being able to like, okay, bam, all your personnel, ships, and facilities, everything at that location's gone, and you can't solve that mission and get its points. And it's just taking too much away. What I think you could do is if you can just simply like errata supernova, because again we have to keep in mind Bashir Founder's use is totally fine. So if you errata supernova, the entire purpose is it does still need to destroy like everything there, right? But if we have the Tox Utot download the supernova and have it also say like to a mission where an opponent has no cards, like so a mission with no personnel or facilities present, right? And then that way supernova doesn't like that way supernova doesn't that way supernova doesn't get abused, right? With Tox Utot, and we can allow supernova to still destroy everything there, but I think the main issue then a companion errata to supernova, place atop any mission, um, and then just have it just simply say like destroy all ships, personnel, and facilities here. That way the mission is still attempt, and then give supernova a -10 or something like that. Just have like the supernova also reduce the mission points or whatever. So like the dilemmas stay, the mission itself stays, but the mission then becomes worth less. You can even make it like a -15 or something. Make the supernova harsh but not necessarily like catastrophic, right? And so then Tox Utot could just simply be a way of like, okay, so when I acquire a Tox Utot, I can then special download supernova to then any mission where my opponent has no personnel then. So like acquiring this Tonks Uta is basically just like hitting the opponent with a -10 or a -15 to some mission that they're not at. That seems pretty fair. So, I don't know. That's just a spitball. This is probably the hardest one to fix. Senior staff meeting, bypassing dilemmas, like it basically auto-nullifying, like, any dilemma, even if it is just limited to space. That's just simply too good. Senior staff meeting. The problem is that it's nullifying it before you face it. We have seen that. Like adapt for Borg is fair, but Borg need adapt, and the non-Borg affiliations don't. I think this one could probably be fair if, one, you remove the captain's order. Although I think the senior staff meeting is actually named by, I think it's actually named by Ready Room Door, if I remember correctly, but no, it doesn't name it. There's something that names senior staff meeting though, but anyway. I think if this was plays on a ship with maybe change it to plays on a ship with 6 different classifications aboard. Plays on your ship with 6 different classifications on board while facing a space dilemma. If you have already faced that dilemma on a previous turn, it is discarded. So it basically becomes like, 1, a limited adapt for non-Borg, because it'd be classifications. Borg can't use it. So Borg can't use it, because they've already got adapt anyway, they don't need it. So Borg can't use it. You got to have 6 different classifications on board, and you would have already faced a space-only dilemma. So it's already hit you at least once. I think at that point, this card gets toned down enough where it becomes like a reasonable card again. That's just, this one is another like tough one. That's just kind of like an initial spitball. Shapeshift Inhibitor. Each player must first discard a person in order to download a non-Borg personnel. This card was just simply too good. It was just way too constricting. I don't really know what you do with this card without completely rewriting it. It kind of has the same problem as these other, like, the ones that became rules. I think that the only thing that you can really do with this would be to somehow make it like an anti... I think this card would have to be simply rewritten, like, almost in its entirety. Maybe, like, plays on table. Nullifies shapeshift. Nullifies shapeshift, strike 3. Just basically the different like morph cards, like the different like infiltrator cards that like interact off of changelings. That might be what you could do with it. The other possibility with it is to be not make it necessarily like lean more into the like interrogation aspect of the thematicness of the card, and just have it be like plays on table. At any time, you may discard this card to download a punishment card onto a captive. You know what I mean? Just, I don't know. Like, this is a tough one, too, because of the fact that it was originally designed as a referee icon card to limit, to basically be like a bronze bullet, silver bullet. on a problem that Decipher made themselves, right? That they got a little too fast and loose with like people being able to download and jumpstart and crap like that. So they try to solve their own problem with that. So I think this card would just simply require like an entire rewrite. I don't think that you can have this card in the game because we basically balanced the game otherwise. The other thing you could do with it, and this is literally, I'm saying it as I'm thinking of it, is that it could just simply be a seeds on table. Take the referee icon off of it, and then just have it be seeds on table. No player may report more than 3 personnel in a turn. It works symmetrically, so there's a symmetrical effect. Realistically, it's not going to slow down most decks because most decks are kind of limited to 3 anyway. I know design and rules and balance has talked about the fact that they are trying to like that they kind of have a soft like rule of 3, like you get 3 report. They only want like people getting like 3 people into play in a turn, and so you basically make the card more or less useless. But it would be good if somehow the meta somehow shifted. Yeah. And you'd keep the non-Borg, so like Borg would still be able to get around it because they would still have like a retask, whatever. So it'd be like each player may not report or may not play or report more than 3 non-Borg personnel in a turn. Yeah. There you go. Maybe that's what you need to do with it. Sherlock Holmes, at the start of your turn, you may draw cards without dialing into your hand is equal to your opponent's. That was just ridiculous from like the very beginning. This was again like Decipher trying to like make these overly powerful cards on purpose in order to try to get people to buy more and more of the set. Yeah, I think that Sherlock Holmes might be fair if it was at the start of your turn, you may draw a card if you have less cards in hand than your opponent. That's probably what you need to do. Because you're giving up all the other versions of data that probably have better skills. And you're basically, he can only be like a card draw engine, and we've already seen that like, you know, playing Morn to get a card draw at Quark's Bar has basically been considered fair. If you're limiting it even further to your opponent has to have more cards in hand than you, then it's a catch-up engine, and I think we're okay with that. So that's just my opinion, is that like it's still a catch-up engine the way it was originally designed, but you limit it to just getting an additional card draw. Subspace Schism. This card was a problem when it was spammed to basically try to, and of course there's the issues of plays within 5 seconds, and then, you know, the realities of it. I think this card should just simply be, it should be once each turn. I wonder if this is like, I wonder if you could just like keep it the way it is, but just go like plays once each turn. So that way you're not like, you can't use it like offensively to try to like really like screw an opponent out of like a significant chunk of their deck or something. So it'd be like Subspace Schisms would be plays once each turn after a player's draw. And then instead of it being like that draw, because there's always problems. I mean, like Magic players would scream if they saw a card like this, because there would be the whole like, how do I know that what card was what card? Because the card that's being targeted has now touched the rest of their hand. So I know like Magic players scream about would literally have a conniption over a card like this, and would be angle shooting this, you know. up the up up the up the tailpipe, on a card like this. So I think it'd be like plays once every turn after a player has drawn a card. That player must discard a random card from hand and then draw a card. Yeah, maybe that's what you do with it. I don't know. Temporal Narcosis plays when an opponent is using Horgon, Revolving Door, Emergency Transporter, Armbands, or Energy Vortex. Your next turn, take it up. This became abused when it was the errata to. With the errata to Revolving Door, you could put the Revolving Door on the opponent's doorway, and then if they executed its game text, they were considered to be using it. I think that was a correct ruling. And then, of course, they have actually errated Horgon now to something fair. So what I think you could do with Temporal Narcosis is just simply change it to plays on an opponent's Horgon or Revolving Door or Emergency Transporter Armbands or Energy Vortex, and just nullifies those cards. This card comes back. It is different, but yeah, you could just be like, plays on an opponent's Horgon, Revolving Door, Emergency Transport Armbands, or Energy Vortex. That card is nullified. Call it good. Time Travel Pod has multiple problems. One, you can basically 5 turns now is basically like you're just destroying it. I mean, most games are over, and games, even if you acquire Time Travel Pod even on turn 1, you can basically lock an opponent's ship and the people on board out of it for most of the rest of the game, already as it is. I think that you can bring Time Travel Pod back if it's limited to just your own ship. And that's it. So if you want to set something aside for just a moment and have it come back, the other thing you could do with it is that you could have it be a dual function card. You could have it be that. You could also put or text on it, or play to move your ship to any time location. So it becomes like a time travel card. Yeah. So I think that just simply limiting it to only being able to target your own ships, and then have it be okay, I can either have the ship disappear for a turn or two, just as a way to prevent it from being battled, or or even I can cross our proposed anti-time anomaly errata. That'd be pretty interesting. Now the 5 cards over here, each of them has been turned into rules. So now the card text are rules, and so there really is no way to errata these cards in any meaningful sense. So I think I'm okay with them just simply being banned anyway. I think this is the exception to the rule. Then I'm okay with them staying banned. We're going to have a banned list in Modern anyway, because cards are going to go in. We want them to come off because we need to have one. I'm okay with these 5 in principle just being the 5 permanent members of the ban list to kind of hold it in place. Consider them the pillars of the Modern ban tent. But if you wanted to bring them back, you could just simply you're taking the picture, you're taking the card, you're taking the picture and the title, the flavor text, and you're just writing a whole new card on top of it. I know that some people would have a huge problem with that, but yeah, that's just like I said, I think I'm fine with it either way. I don't really want to belabor these and try to come up with ideas for what to do. I think that You Are a Monument has a lot of different things you could do. I mean, you could just be you could have You Are a Monument be, if you've solved the mission in 3 different quadrants, you win the game. You could have the big picture be, You know, general quarters could be a way that you could just download a person. It could be, ironically, they could change it to like you get a download of a card on your opponent's turn, you know, like in a certain situation. I don't know. But that's the video. Like I said, I'm not going to belabor these 5 too much here. That's the video. You know, feel free to comment and, you know, post a comment at the bottom of the videos what you think some of these cards should be changed to. I think that the design and balance teams would appreciate as much input from as broad up, you know, segment of the of our player community as possible. There's no such thing as a bad idea. Just sometimes they're not workable ideas. I know that people like talk about that's a bad idea. It's like, well, when it comes to errating a card, there's no bad. Maybe I'll put it this way: there's no stupid idea anyway. Like at the very least, it may end up being a bad idea, but there's no such thing as a stupid idea. At the very least, it's something to ponder. So, anyway, like I said, feel free to leave your own thoughts in the comments section below as to any ideas that you have for these different cards. Any comments that you have for my ideas on the cards. Be sure to like the video if you did like the video. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell so that when I do post these videos at random sometimes, that you are notified that the videos have been posted so you can take a look. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have had a great holiday season. I hope you have a very happy new year, and may the profits be with you.